Design now plays an unprecedented role in our lives. Even our coffee drinks are designed and branded. How do you find clarity in this landscape, both in your design process and how you put things out there?
For me, I design for myself, or for me and my partner. We live with everything as does Grant. So it's kind of easy. It's sort of like, I know what my brand is, I know what my point of view is, because it's ultimately for me. It's sort of this self-fulfilling prophecy that I'm like, I want to live with everything I make. I think we get into trouble when we're not doing that, when we're trying to do something for a client that wants something very specific that we tried, and then we're like, this isn't really what we do. Like, cool, but this is maybe not, we're not going to be the best ones to do this. Like, maybe, find a fabricator, because we're not fabricators, we're designers. So I think when we figure out our point of view, as we have sort of organically over the years, it's pretty easy. It's like, do I want to live with this? Do I want to interact with this? Do I want, to show this to my friends? Would I give this to someone I love? It makes those cues sort of easier for us, I think.
For us, it's for me, it's somewhat similar in that, like, I try to have, like, just trying to find the truth in the material and the process, and so that ends up like guiding a lot of just like what is excess, what is ornamentation is a line I really try to toe carefully to, which is hard because ornamentation is awesome and it like really serves a purpose a lot of the times, but like I think I don't give myself always that freedom to use it because I'm trying to figure out what the purest idea is. And I think I spoke of this earlier, but I think the idea is whole like conversation and materiality and physics and craft. And if I don't have those as like my dialogue partners, I feel like I'm just a little bit lost. And I often say that like I think my process is very akin to like nonfiction rather than fiction, and I think that's like where I try to find it. And then a huge hero is actually John McPhee, who, if you don't know him, he's a brilliant nonfiction writer. But just like the way he approaches like a story and a narrative and they deconstructs it in this way that like, keeps you along for the ride is like I think a lot of what drives like our articulation. And it's like when you're making those last decisions of even the smallest little details, can you find a logic somewhere that like tips your hand and pushes you in some place. And I think that's, I don't know how I stay to brand, I guess. But I oftentimes, like, I think one of my biggest compliments I ever get is when I launch a new product and everyone's like, doesn't look like your stuff. I'm like, good. Like, that's the whole point, is that it's not supposed to be the same thing every single time or the same thing. It's supposed to be, each one is a different conversation, and I don't want them to be interchangeable and blended. I want to create range in that stuff as much as possible, I guess. Probably to the detriment of my brand, but just from an intellectual pursuit.
I think there's a cohesion between all of your pieces because of the methodology behind it, right?
I think our big standout is color. I'm eternally a recovering painter, and if I had my way, I would have been a painter. But I mean, I do have my way. But it's really color, and the way that we produce, we're able to, because we're kind of like hybrid made to order, is that we can powder coat, I mean, it's mostly powder coating, any color for any customer anytime. So that's a real unique offering, because in the aesthetic that we're operating on, which is largely mass produced, and if you look at a lot of the Scandinavian brands, Menu, Muto, Hey, like we're in that range, but they'll offer 2 colors, 4 colors. Now, we mostly sell black and white, but for the customer who wants color, we're like, yeah, no problem. Pink, mauve, I mean, all of these, the cobalt blue, I don't know if you guys noticed, cobalt blue's everywhere right now. Like, it's having a little bit of a moment, but we've been doing that since the beginning. So right now, we have this backlog of all this cobalt, and I just like keep posting on Instagram, and people are like, oh, cobalt, yes! And I'm like, yeah, it's just a good color. We had a mint green that we did for years when mint was really hot, and we were in different trend magazines every 6 months because mint was the color of the moment, and it just happened to be the color of the moment for like 5 years, and now it's kind of waning. And this plant stand right here, this is like a sage or color, like that softer, I mean, sage and mauve, like all of those softer colors, I mean, those are hitting, and we can deliver on those. And I think that's the one thing that we continue to be known for, is that we do color, and we do color well, and you expect that from us.
I think I just should ask probably what's next.
Well, we just launched this new product, and as is classic of our studio, at least we launched it without it being in production ready mode, and so it was that 11th hour thing where we got everything in the crates and shipped it to New York, and we had the first article prototypes or third article prototypes. But we're actually going through production right now, which is its own kind of like process. Our scale, like where we're trying to hit our price points, involves like a small level of mass production. So we're talking about just ramping up like the 25 quantities of each size, and then hopefully that sells, and that's not the worst investment I ever made. But there's always that little leap of faith that you kind of show something before you write the big checks to make sure that you're not crazy, that there is a market for that stuff, because sometimes you don't know. I dream of having a showroom where you could get instant feedback. That sounds amazing, but our development process is rather expensive. There's a huge, at least for this fixture, it's like a pretty big investment cost. So we're going through that, and then trying to learn the lesson of like how it felt painful to do that at the 11th hour by starting the 2020 product launch like right now. So those are the two kind of like putting one out the door and trying to learn the lesson of like starting the next one now.
I think for us, it's a new material for our hardware. In fact, we just had a conversation this week and also this morning with one of our collaborators about what that new material would look like. It will be interesting because even though we're very specific to Los Angeles, it might be made in the Midwest. So we're like exploring kind of, I mean, we'll never make in China, but we definitely are kind of going out of our comfort zone of not being able to just drive somewhere and see something in person. So that's part of what's, I think, coming probably this fall. And then the same thing I mentioned earlier with the globes. So having various sizes of acrylic globes that will sort of cover those light sources, and specifically making even smaller ones that look like a light bulb, right? Or a globe, so that way it appears as though it's an incandescent, but it's actually going to be obviously more environmentally friendly and more true to our brand. So those are kind of the things that are up and coming.
For us this year, it's some similar stuff as Jolene said. We're knock on wood coming off the best quarter we've ever had. So our mom and pop manufacturers are feeling a little stressed and strained. So we're doing the same thing. We're kind of looking outside the box and not outside of, well, hopefully not outside of Los Angeles, but definitely not outside of the country, and looking at sort of a larger manufacturing options. And then also we've inadvertently really become a line to the trade, which has just happened sort of organically over the last 5 or 6 years. And as much as that's great, having the same repeated client and the client that kind of knows what to expect, and we do miss sometimes dealing with the public, even though we're set up to deal with the public and we have a retail store. So we're trying to sort of capture that client back a little bit, and we're thinking about sort of scary things like making things quick ship, small quick ship line, like looking at sort of what some of these young whippersnappers are doing and try to do something like that.
And we're looking at different categories, which is always fun. We've been playing around with ceramics for the last few years, which not personally, but working with some of the ceramic artists that we work with to make parts that then we kind of can collaborate on pieces. We've been doing a table collection with ceramicists, which has been really fun. And we've gotten in a little bit into textiles, doing some soft goods, doing some blankets and pillows, and it's been fun just to play with different materials and not be sort of in the same rut. And I think when we come back to the other things that we've been working on for a while, it makes it more fun, because now we're thinking about a bigger palette. We're just kind of expanding the palette always, and it makes everything a little more interesting.
2018 was a big project year for us. We had a big lull on product. The stuff that we had already designed, the stuff that was already in production, and we just kind of kept getting these little projects. And we did so many last year, but based on the way we develop those items, so the stuff we did for the Saguaro and the stuff we did for our most localist Long Beach coffee shop, that we said, hey, can we do your full interior project for free, and just outfitted them, those kind of things. And also like Saguaro, that lobby project, that was almost back to like how it was in grad school. It was just like, just pay us materials and beer, because that whole entire lobby we did for like 18 grand. There was no money in it, but we knew that if we developed this stuff and they gave us tacos and beer, that it would turn into something down the line. So it that afforded us to put those pieces into production. And so now we're, taking all these pieces that we developed for projects last year and bringing them to the trade shows and putting them in front of interior designers and firms and agencies and posting on Instagram, which is still the number one way we generate business. Is just like, all we have to do is just share it on the free photo sharing app, regularly and, with good, well-lit photos. And that's how that continues to be the main way we drive business. So even just saying, hey, the thing that you saw in the coffee shop we did last year, you can now buy that. So doing that, we pulled our website down 6 months ago. We don't have anything but a splash page that says email us, and that's working. So we're playing with all these different toggles. We don't have an online shop anymore. We're trying to invest in our specific retail partnerships and telling people when they email us in Cincinnati, hey, there's a retail shop right there. Like, just get your car and drive, and you can see it in person, buy it in person, and rather than having us ship it across the country. So I am a big believer in brick and mortar. I think it's still such a delight to walk into any store in any state and see new stuff. I am bummed at the kind of general store movement that carries the same brand in every single general store in every city. But it's also really, so seeing that kind of differentiation is really cool. I think in brick and mortar and being able to have a local shop for home goods with local goods and international goods and all that, still it's a really cool and big risk for people to still do. So we're excited to partner with those people who are still fighting that good fight.
I really appreciate your time and your guys' time. I know it's late, but I really don't want it to stop. So I have to say yes, thank you, and let's do it again sometime. Okay, great.
Thanks, Jenny.